It's June 30th, 2019. You're listening to episode 124 of Fancy Ramen. I'm Neil.
Who is Mother?
Who
I'm
is
Cookie.
Mother indeed?
I am Mother, and I'm also Scott. On today's podcast, we talk about the Netflix sci-fi thriller I Am Mother and do a check-in on my Evangelion watching. To those who want a quick update, I think I'm about halfway.
Are you intentionally saying Jellion?
Why, you Gelly?
Yeah, man. I'm more about that Evangelion life.
I'm more about going to parties that Scott was not invited to, and also comparing the differences between Divinity Original Sin 2, PC and console, Yakuza 0, a little talk about auto battlers.
I get to talk about my friend Pedro a little bit. He's a cool cat. Also a banana. And, we also do a little bit of controller talk. And wonder why Neil hates Microsoft so much.
All this and more on Fancy Ramen, episode 124. Who is Mother?
Hi!
Yeah, well, I mean, part of it is like we're supposed to just get into a flow state of talking. But when you come in sounding like a robot, it throws everybody off. We're much more worried about you in general.
Whether I've been a robot all along.
Yeah, you could just be an android. Would you, if you were an android or if you were a robot, do you think you'd be able to nurture a child? Do you think you'd be good at that?
It depends. Would I be getting a set of instructions from someone in order to nurture said child?
Nah, you're an AI, and like you have human record, but let's say you have 0 humans to turn to.
I feel like it'd be bad because if you're an artificial intelligence learning from like your surroundings, your feedback, if you will, all the feedback you get is from a child. So at the point the child believes that candy is the only thing that's good for it, you're going to, I don't know, I guess it depends. Are you taking blood work from the child constantly?
Yeah, like let's say that you're an artificial intelligence, so you can obviously tell if it's actually good or not for the kid, right? You could like test the blood glucose levels and see if it's actually good or not. Look, I'm trying to give a little promo to the premise of a film I watched last night on Netflix called I Am Mother, which is this like sci-fi thriller in which this girl grows up with being the only human alive, at least from what we understand in the start, and she's being raised by an artificial intelligence. I think until like she's in her adolescent years or her like teen years when the movie really starts, and she's grown up without any other human interaction. The only thing that she's ever interacted with is a robot interface to an AI that is named Mother, and she is unnamed character daughter, and daughter and mother live in this like locked down facility after humanity has supposedly destroyed itself.
Nice.
It's a sci-fi thriller, I think. And it's a movie where up until the very end of it, I was still like I was trying to determine what route they were actually going to take, because I think it's so rife for like different storytelling opportunities. Like I think they could have taken the direction of the plot of this film in a whole like variety of different ways. And so it was pretty interesting and entertaining. I don't know if I'm actually all that satisfied with it at the very end, but that's just because there are some like basic flaws to having the I don't know, it may address them, but there's some basic flaws to like it having an AI confined to a robotic body for the most part. when the facility that they're in, you think that the AI would also be able to control and or, embody the facility as well, right? Like the robot, it should just be an extension of the AI's like physical reach. But the way that they like set this up, it's like Mother, like the robot that is Mother is not just the only way that AI can have like physical agency. But then the design of the building doesn't make sense if the AI just uses Mother as like another appendage to what it can do.
Because
what I'm
there
trying
are
to
certain
say
places
is like,
where Mother cannot go as the robot.
or it's like Mother doesn't have a good surveillance system, and it's like if you can build an AI, then you know that you should have like cameras in every room, right?
Oh yeah, okay.
That's an
I
invasion of privacy.
But her whole goal is to raise a successful human child, like from what we understand in the initial premise of the movie. And so like the robot, if someone were to design a system or even an AI, like they wouldn't necessarily need to do the whole thing of not having cameras around for the child's privacy. Like the robot just would, I think, innately know to not give up the fact that it's watching at all times,
Yeah.
It's weird. It's an interesting film.
Can I ask a question without it entering spoiler territory?
Absolutely.
Well, I guess rather you, and whether or not you feel like you should or should not spoil us. I don't necessarily see myself seeing this movie.
Yeah, it's worth picking up if you got an hour and 30 to burn.
Sometimes I don't think I do though. But is she a product of an artificial birth?
Yeah, so she's like a little fetus that came out of a fetus bath bomb that they drop into like a tank and fill with nutrients or whatever. Like they hyper accelerate the growth of the fetus. It's like the fetuses are freeze dried or something. And so she gets dropped in like a bath bomb, and then 24 hours later she's like a birthed human, and then Mother takes care of her from there. So that's the only speeding up of her aging process. Like otherwise, she has to grow up naturally.
Wouldn't it be easier? Like, so what is the intention
children?
of Mother? If, like, wouldn't it be better if she actually birthed, so to speak, multiple children
instead of just one?
Yeah.
In the preview to the film, therefore I cannot count it as a spoiler, I think the girl asks like, why am I the only kid, or why am I the only child? And Mother's response is, mothering takes practice. And that is like, that's her response. And that's as much context as they give you in the preview. But you can see how that could be a foreshadowing statement.
We fucked up a lot of times before you.
But the kid is completely like, I can't say, is this the first kid? Is this the third kid? Is this the 8,000th kid?
Right.
Is Mother actually a bad mom? Are robots good moms? Yes or no? Twitter poll.
I'm team yes.
This is just, I think this is just propaganda to keep us away from artificial birth and artificial parenting.
There's something that is very, I don't know, like stereotypical gender roles about this. That's kind of, it's weird. It's a little unnerving. I'm trying to determine if it's just like, well, they're trying to take a human perspective or element to this, but in contrast to a machine, and so therefore it's like the most concrete idea we can think of when they represent like what biological motherhood would be like versus in silica or a synthetic motherhood. But it's a little complex, but at the same time, it's hard to not come away with just a little bit of a like, this is sort of a, like, it gives me propaganda vibes in some ways.
I have no idea what to take away from this.
I know it's hard to say anything without actually doing spoilers, but like there's definitely an instance in the film, not spoil anything, that I think leans very heavily that a robotic mother or like a non like biological female can like can't have success nurturing a human successfully.
I just find the issue with like it's kind of the same thing you brought up, and I'm assuming at some point in time the child wants to hide, and the child successfully hides, or the girl at that point successfully hides by hiding in some corner where there are no surveillance cameras or no whatever, and like
there's no point in this movie at all in which surveillance cameras even pop up, and I'm like,
my god,
how is there not like one CCTV camera in the main room, you know?
So I think the only way to rationalize its lack of surveillance is that whoever created the artificial intelligence was like, well, my mom wasn't hooked up to a mainframe computer system.
Yeah. She's actually got quite the Gladys vibe to her too, like single central optical input, and then it's like sandwiched between two longer pieces of metal, like that weird like vertically adjusting eyeball. They have this thing in which they're trying to follow. I mean, there's a lot of like interesting sci-fi ideas, but there were just multiple times where Sierra and I would watch this. And it's like, if they have the technology to do this, why the hell aren't they doing like? Why don't they have less more rudimentary technology to satisfy these needs or problems?
Right.
Like if the robot, or if Mother the AI literally has to move the robot around the room to see what's going on, that seems a little insane considering the fact that here we go. Here's a great idea. Mother has to power down. Like that robot runs out of juice at some point in time. We can build an AI, but that robot needs 8 hours of sleep or whatever in order to recharge its batteries. Who didn't think to just build two robots so while one is down, the other mother can be up and working?
And they don't even have to be separate consciousnesses or entities between the two.
No, she can just have an empty shell she pops into when the other ones run out of energy.
Why don't they have like some sort of injection plug? Fuck, I don't remember the AVA terms, but the power cord that just goes right into the back of your spine,
the control
your robot
plug.
spine. Yeah, which then allows you to move more. You know, I'm not talking about the entry plug. But
right. But why isn't she hooked up to an external power source? Yeah. Why doesn't she just have like a hookup the same way that an old person is hooked up to an oxygen tube, and they still can walk around their entire space because they've got a long line to their oxygen tank or whatever?
So feel free to spoil me on this part, but just this very part, you can answer yes or no on this.
Okay.
Spoilers to anyone. Does it turn out that Mother is being used as an experiment, and the reason why there are all of these flaws, like with the logical flaws with like, we can make this fucking super advanced robot AI, but we still don't have cameras in the back of her head sort of thing? Is it because, is that intentional, or is that just a plot hole?
There's just big plot holes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a bummer.
I want to see this story told again. I want to see this story told like 10 more times, taking different angles or approaches, though. And I think it could be very interesting.
Would you prefer if one of those times was told through an anime?
I'm never opposed to an anime rendition of something.
So how far have you gotten in Ava then?
Episode 14 or 15, and man, that show's built for me. Okay, we got robots and mecha technology. That's cool. But there's also some really, like, they have a lot of nods to like genetics that's just like hanging out in the background, or for those in the know to see in this show. They're talking about like an element when they get hacked, or it might not be when they get hacked. I think it might be when they have the power outage. But they have a central part of the station called the Pribno box, which is actually it's a particular type of sequence that exists in bacterial genomes, and I think it's like 10 to 15 base pairs upstream of like a start codon. So it's like that is incredibly specific, like little nod there. There's another one. I think it's the Shine Delgarno sequence, if I remember correctly. That's like another site I remember. Oh no, never mind. This is a ribosomal binding site. That's a little different. Anyway, long story short, that's a very specific like little genetic nod that they throw out there for anybody who's taken like a college genetics course. They also have central dogma, as they call it. The central dogma, like it's a system or it's part of their network. And central dogma in at least as it's used in biology, is talking about the progression of like genetic code into other things. Like there's no backtracking in a sense with central dogma. You can only move forward through certain productions of DNA. Oh man, let's see. I will find a very quick better explanation instead of looking at my or like trying to dig through 8-ish years of genetics knowledge. Central dogma in molecular biology is talking about the information flow of genes from DNA to RNA to protein. You take DNA, you create RNA out of it. Normally it's called messenger RNA, and then that gets interpreted to build a protein. And so you can never have a protein make an RNA back to a DNA. DNA can only move from DNA to other DNA or DNA to RNA, ultimately to protein. So they have this reference in here, and then is the blue-haired gal, her name is Ray Ayanami or something?
Yes.
She's literally looking at a book that's full of like genetic sequences and plasmids at one point in time when they bump into her. So they haven't talked about much like biology or genetics, but I can see it coming in or having a more significant part, maybe potentially linking humans to angels. Like there seem to be hints about that just off of what I've seen so far. But this is a show that's like made to pique my interest. I just think that it is so interesting and well built. The pacing is really hard to break out of. Like every episode just draws me deeper in with interest and excitement. But it's also just got, it's got really funny comedic timing from time to time. It catches you off guard. And the music, I honestly don't think is all that special besides the opener so far, but it all seems to fit really well. Nothing feels out of place. It seems just right, even if it's not that exciting or easy to remember.
It's all Muzak for the most part, but
yeah,
and like granted, this is a lot of nostalgia playing in, but when you hear that piano, those I think they're honestly just power chord's not the right word, but it's just thirds for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Minor and major thirds. When you hear that weird menacing piano come in, that signals that, oh, something's going on, or like plot is happening, weird shit's happening.
It happens once per episode, right? And as soon as you hear it, you're like, oh, here's the twist, or here's the thing.
Yeah, we're gonna hear an explanation that we don't understand, or we're going to get something that Shinji, I should say, doesn't understand per se.
Yeah.
Or like some menacing shit's gonna be told to us that won't make sense until later, etc., etc. So, do you know what thermal? Have you witnessed thermal expansion?
Yeah. I also love that too. They have really fun or like interesting foreshadowing. The evolution of the angels has been really interesting too. Like, I'm just having a hard time finding any flaws to what I'm watching. Like my complaint is still, this was animated in the 90s. Wouldn't it be amazing to see it animated now by like Madhouse? But
well, so I mean, technically, you'll have to watch or at least try the first movie. The first, what the hell is it called? Not Rebirth.
End of Evangelion or something.
So those
like
were
that.
all made within relatively the same period of time, but they made the. It's kind of like a reimagining series, if you will.
It's like a Death Squared one or something like that.
So. Regardless, we can talk about it more once you've finished the series. But
they're
I was
all
going
on my list.
Yeah, I was going to say there were two bits of interesting, we'll say, trivia that I learned over the last week or so that I thought was relevant to this conversation. The first one, and I will note that you may or may not have already witnessed periods of like the effect, but apparently at certain points in time, one of the producers was stealing money from the project, and I actually don't think he was stealing it for personal use. He was actually putting the resources that Gynex or whatever studio it was given.
I think it's Gymax, Gaimax.
They were taking, or the producer was taking the money and actually saving it for a different animation project. So the show absolutely starts to encounter like resource or I guess just like funding problems as you go further and further into the series. So keep that in mind. That's an interesting thing to consider. And also, apparently, and I don't remember exactly what it was, or the source I was reading was not clear on this, but apparently when this series first started airing in Japan, it either replaced, as in it took up this time slot, or it aired after the American localized version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like, you remember that old cartoon with April O'Neil and the yellow jumpsuit?
Just
like
barely,
the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that we had on Saturday mornings.
Ninja Turtles. Yeah.
In either case, think about like watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as a kid. Yeah, Leonardo's the best. Leonardo. And then having it follow up immediately after. This is a morning show by a new robot anime called Evangelion.
That's insane. I cannot imagine that transition. Though the Ninja Turtles come from a pretty like mature background as well. Their story's actually pretty dark. Not in, I think, the animated television series, but
I mean, they're what, nuclear waste turtles,
they're
basically?
Nuclear waste turtles trained to be assassins.
But cowabunga.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of neuters it a little bit, but...
and they eat pizza, and they never kill Shredder.
I think it was way grittier when it was written, though, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it could be. But the TV show is like, totally for kids.
Oh, yeah,
and then
absolutely.
You have Evangelion show up, and it's obviously way different, right?
Yeah, I would say that those would be pretty hard to have any similarities between the two.
What have you been up to, Cookie?
I guess yesterday there was a surprise birthday party that was thrown for me. Thanks for showing up, Neil.
Yeah, where were you, Scott, huh?
I didn't get invited. What the heck is this? I could have at least sent like my condolences and a gift, but no, nobody asked me.
I actually don't know
Nice.
if Cookie knew I was showing up either, so.
This is a real on-air snub.
I think Lizzie mentioned you were showing up.
Okay.
This was also for the deck party that was originally planned.
Yeah, it was originally, as Cookie thought, it was just a party for a deck, for his completed deck, his big deck.
Yep. Had to put that big deck energy out into the world.
And then
Had to share it with your neighbors.
Plot twist, it was a birthday party all along. Were you actually surprised?
It was. It was a very pleasant surprise.
When is your actual birthday?
The 4th.
Oh, all right. I mean,
Yeah, he's a firework baby.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. I have a friend who's also a firework baby, but she actually hates sharing it with the holiday.
Oh, me too. I wish for rain every year.
I had a 4th of July, or no, it was a 3rd of July where it was a straight downpour. Almost got into like a terrible car accident because the visibility was so bad.
Bwahaha. Sorry, what? Yes. No, I'm not laughing at you.
No, that's okay. That was neither here nor there. What else has been up, though? You've got to have some big birthday plans.
Next week we're going to Chicago to spend some time with the sister-in-law. I think Lizzie wants to go skydiving, indoor skydiving.
That would be indoor. Okay,
What is
Yes, that
indoor
means-
skydiving?
it's
They
vertical
put you-
wind tunneling.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes. I do remember. You've gone before, right, Cookie?
Yeah,
Yes. Lots of fun.
you guys are going to be experts by the end of this vacation.
So we might do that. That's pretty much about it. Haven't really been doing much outside of life. Yeah. I've kind of just been going home and after work since the deck's been finished and like, what am I going to do now?
You could read a book on your deck.
Yeah. Or I could just go inside and like watch anime or
You could put a TV up next to the windows and then sit on your deck and watch anime.
nice.
It's blisteringly hot out right now. So
Yes, it's the worst.
Oh, yeah, you guys have humidity. I forget. Shade doesn't just like solve the problem.
ironically, having a party for your deck, I don't think many people wanted to stay outside for too long.
No. Once the sun went down, it got a little more outsidey. But then there was also a jam session that started in the basement. So, yeah, it was nice. Got to see my baby cousin Tia. She ended up showing up, which is always a good surprise since she doesn't live in town. So yeah, it was a good time. But yeah, besides that, I haven't really been doing much along the lines of non-video game related things.
Oh, that's good news.
Oh.
That means you've been doing a lot on the video game end.
Not really much on the video game end either. I had a question for Neil, and he didn't really have an answer for me. So I have a question for you, Scott.
Okay.
Which team
shoot.
did you join?
Team?
Yes, for the Steam Summer Sale.
Oh, there's teams for the Steam. I got a deal and walked back out. I actually don't spend time on the Steam store anymore because I found I buy games and then don't play them. So now I just, when I'm thinking about a game, put it on my wish list. And then when I see it's dropped to half price on my wish list, I just go in and buy it and call it good.
Nice.
Steam's too good at getting deals in my face and convincing me to buy stuff.
I think that'll be what I do after this podcast is jump on Steam, see what you were talking about, and I apparently have to buy Divinity Original Sin 2 as well.
Yeah, which
Yes.
I can say on the computer is a harder experience to pick up than playing on the console.
Really?
Yeah, it's wild. Now that I've played both, I think I prefer the computer, but in all honesty, I think the console is way more like I think it's optimized to be a lot more like beginner friendly.
Huh. So
Yeah.
And you're just talking navigation wise, right?
I'm talking what am I talking? I'm talking about navigating. I'm talking about building characters. Like there's actually, it seems, although you have more at your fingertips on the computer, the way that it is condensed and the information is presented on at least the PlayStation 4 console version is very nice and almost more helpful than what the computer offers. Like when I'm leveling up on the PlayStation 4, I can see my like basic stats to the right-hand side of the window that I'm using to say select what my
Increase is going to be in.
what my skills or my attributes are going to be, and I can see how those directly impact my character stats. Meanwhile, on the computer, they actually don't show that. So like it'll tell you it'll do this percentage, and then you actually have to flip back on another screen if you want to like compare what that's actually going to do. There's also no with the console version, you can invest points and then withdraw them if you don't like you can essentially toggle in. Let's say I have 15 strength and I have 2 points to spend. I can toggle into 17, but until I leave the screen, it's not finalized. On the computer, as soon as I put in those 2 points of strength, I cannot reallocate them. So that's also kind of a nuisance. Like
Oh.
it locks you into your choices. There's no way to see like, oh, what will happen if I boost my strength up? Will this change my accuracy by this amount or something? Which I think actually Constitution affects that. So we'll say that if I boost my Constitution, is my accuracy going to drop? You don't know until you've actually plugged it in and found out that your accuracy does indeed drop.
Huh.
So can you have two screens open then at that point to show both?
Well, I opened up the at least the way that I know it, like your character information panel, the way that you access the skills and the attributes and whatnot, it's tabs, just like they had for the PlayStation version, but you have to navigate between you don't get a reference to like the main character stats tab like you do for the console version. Instead, you have a skills tab and a stats tab and a basic attributes tab and a talents tab. And when you hit those, you don't see what they do to your basic stats until you move back to that basic stats tab. And I don't think you can open the same window to have each, like, two of the tabs open and active at the same time, which means it's definitely trickier in the beginning if you don't know how to allocate points to figure out what you're actually doing or like what's really happening, because it's much easier to see with the console version. Like if I adjust this, these stats go up or these basic stats go up or down. Now I know what happens when I invest points in this. Instead, it's like, I'm going to invest these points and I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing, but I won't see anything concrete until I flip back to the next tab. And I have to remember what changed. However, the gameplay and the combat is so much easier with the keyboard mouse.
I can dig it. How do you move?
There's two ways you can move. You can either hold down the left click on your mouse and your character will move towards where that is, or you do it's a point and click system.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The point and click system works really well because then you can autopilot to things by like point and click halfway across the map and then look through some menus while you're walking.
I wonder if there's a mod that will essentially let Cookie play the game more like it is on PS4.
Why just Cookie?
Well, I mean, maybe he wants to as well. But
I think
I'd
Scott
love
would
that.
really appreciate to have what sounds like the easier,
I wonder if that's just keyboard mouse though, because it is like it detected my controller and immediately went into a controller setup as well. I just think like the precision with keyboard mouse is very good, and I kind of understand what I'm doing, so I don't feel as much of a motivator to use the controller. But maybe the best strategy is to use the controller for the kind of console style setup. Yeah, and then when I'm doing combat and I need precision, to switch to keyboard mouse. It's also nice to be able to access the hotbar so easily. Like that's the one complaint I had on the controller, is lots of misclicks or just taking a really long time to use skills and abilities. While with the computer, it's hit your hotkey or like tap it on the bottom bar and you're ready to go.
Nice.
It's going to be a fun one. This game's a blast, and it looks really good on the computer too. I'm playing on the ultra graphical settings, and they're gorgeous.
That I can't wait to see.
Mm-hmm.
So I got you some whiskeys, right, Cookie? I brought you some Japanese whiskeys over that I just haven't been drinking. I haven't been drinking a lot of alcohol, and one of them in particular, the Suntory, is like just not my palate, not my cup of tea.
It's okay. It's not the best.
Yeah, but do you know, it's much more enjoyable when you are a, mid-20s-ish Yakuza member drinking Suntory in Kamurocho. And what I'm describing is my experiences in the game Yakuza 0, which is on PlayStation 4 and PC, and maybe some other consoles I'm not familiar with too. Actually, it might be PlayStation 3 to begin with. Anyways, though, Yakuza 0, it's fun. You essentially are playing Shenmue, except instead of being a kid looking to avenge your dad and get the however many mirrors that, unite Shenmue together, or whatever the shit happens in Shenmue, I don't know anymore. You play as a noble member of the Yakuza. And by the way, did I say noble? Because I'm going to say it again. Noble. I've obviously heard a bunch about the Yakuza series before, but never having played it firsthand, I didn't really get the total picture of what this game was, or I guess any sort of the charm. I knew some of the characteristics. I knew that like the Yakuza after one are basically painted pretty positively throughout the entire series. Part of that has to do with the potential friendship between some head honchos at some important families and the game's director, who actually knows, though. That's all just hearsay from what I can tell. The game is essentially like, in every sense of the phrase, a spiritual successor to Shenmue. It's an adventure game, or it's kind of like a twist on like Life Town Simulator, where you walk around and interact with the people, but also like just straight up beat 'em up. You can walk around and go in and play darts and play pool. You can go and sing karaoke, which, by the way, this game somehow manages to be better than every other rhythm game in that it makes the prompts feel more natural to the song you're playing, as opposed to most games like locking into the rhythm but also feeling disconnected in some way. Just my 5 cents there real quick. Immediately en route to the bar or to the bowling alley or wherever you may be going, you will encounter anyone from delinquents to other like rival Yakuza to men in black, quote unquote, to drunks, in which you may have to occasionally pick up a bicycle and start slamming that into their faces. And
lots of improvised weapons.
yes, absolutely. It's very, very over the top, and at times maybe a little too gory for my tastes, but it also doesn't necessarily bother me on like a moral scale, because the saying is that Kiryu, the protagonist of these games, has never killed anyone, and that includes like bashing a guy's head in multiple times with an ashtray and then kicking him out of a window from a second or third story building. He's still alive. Don't worry about it.
No, nobody's died, but they have been inserted in a pachinko machine on several occasions.
So you've played Sleeping Dogs before, Scott. I believe that to be the case. I think Sleeping Dogs gets a lot of its influence from Yakuza, and I think Sleeping Dogs, if this helps you in any way, is a cross between Grand Theft Auto and Yakuza together. So it takes both of the elements of both of those games and puts them together, and the goofiness that you get from Sleeping Dogs, which is really not there as strong as GTA elements, but those goofy elements are definitely the Yakuza influence coming out.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
The result of these different influences for Yakuza 0, at least, but besides like the polish they've gotten, since this is actually one of the more recent games out of the entire series, being a prequel too, though, is actually like a really pleasant experience at which you have a lot to do, despite like even sitting down with the game for 30 minutes. You can go and you can shoot some pool, bowl a little bit. You can make friends with some of the locals, go and buy various items from the supermarket, including a shit ton of advertised name brand products like Mountain Dew and various whiskeys like Suntory and so forth. A lot of energy drinks that definitely exist in real life as well. But you also get like an extremely arcadey fun element from the combat, which stays pretty fresh because you are jumping between 3 different, I wouldn't say stances, but 3 different like fighting styles. One is called your brawler, which is just straight up balanced. You have one which I think is called Rage, which is like much slower but much more powerful, and you automatically just pick up random items around like your location. Like if there is something you can pick up next to you, if you're doing a basic attack, Kiryu will actually just pick it up and start slamming it against the person as well. And then you have your third style, which is I believe called Rush, which is more agile. You're much faster, and you actually don't even have your blocks. Instead, you're only dodging. So with those 3 different styles, if you're not into one, you're going to be into the other 2 most likely, or you're more likely than anything going to find points where you want to use all 3. And there's also a heat system built in where the more you beat people up, the more heat bars you get, kind of like from a fighting game standpoint with your supers. You can use them in special attacks. But
Oh,
when
it's
your
not
heat,
police attention.
I mean, they should be paying attention to you, but apparently the police don't exist in this game so far, at
Okay.
least. But as you get more and more heat bars, your character basically enters into a, like kind of like the closest thing I can say is basically like a Super Saiyan mode, where your guy is now on fire, and the color that's respective to whatever style you're in. Blue for the balanced, red for the speed or rush style, and yellow for the rage or power based style. And your character is significantly quicker and stronger in each of those forms. But I like, while the gameplay itself is really fun, it's enjoyable just to run around and do all of the various mini games and beat people up and, follow the story. I'm actually finding the most amount of joy from this game by the ridiculous side quests. The very last one I did, I was contacted by a director that I had done previous work for as a producer. And apparently, Miracle Johnson was in Kamurocho to film his latest music video. Now, for context, this game takes place, I think, sometime in the late 70s or 80s. I could be wrong. It could be slightly different from then. But Miracle Johnson, as you are about to witness, but you can certainly deduce beforehand by people calling him the pop star prince, is an obvious parody of Michael Jackson. Miracle Johnson's music video is of him getting chased by zombies. But in order for it to be legitimate, for it to be for him to feel like there is actual imminent danger, the zombies are going to attack Miracle Johnson, actually attack him, and you have to escort him through the street as he's just constantly moonwalking down this entire stretch of road, doing nothing else but just moonwalking down the road in his trademark red jacket and ridiculous sunglasses, which were definitely not Michael Jackson style.
Right.
What was the best practice was going into that rage mode and carrying around neon signs and smashing them against zombies as they're walking by, trying to interrupt Miracle Johnson's moonwalking. And the quest reward, or I guess you could say the ending cutscene, is just filled with ridiculous bullshit, like the Steven Spielberg character or stand-in character, parody character, being so mesmerized and awed by Miracle Johnson's performance, and Miracle Johnson inviting you to be a bodyguard, his personal bodyguard to travel the world, and Kiryu saying no, you know what? As much as I would like that, I have to be in Kamurocho. This is where I belong. And Miracle Johnson's well, I guess I can't steal Kamurocho's star from it, can I? Or something along those lines. The game's just chock full of these ridiculous side stories that I think really are where the game shines as a whole. The main story is fine, but it's really all of this weird, ridiculous, comical banter that you encounter by choice through the game that sets this experience aside from even Shenmue. It totally takes the weird campiness of Shenmue and just, I guess, takes it a whole new level. And I think that's exactly what I liked from Shenmue. I liked playing the lucky hit. I liked saying random bullshit to random passerbyers, asking people if they knew where sailors were and if they knew Chinese. And you don't get the direct translation of that in this game, but that sort of spirit is basically the absolute definition of what I think most people like about Yakuza and the series. But needless to say, I'm enjoying it a lot. And apparently there's another main character that you play as in this game they haven't even gotten to, and you also can run a hostess club. So there's a lot of excellent, ridiculous, controversial fun that I'm about to have, I'm sure. I digress. That's about the only thing worth talking about other than streaming and playing the occasional ARAM.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, auto chess happened. Did we talk about auto chess last time?
No, we have not.
I would say
I don't
that
know what this is.
Yeah, the queue times were too much of a dissuader for me. The one time I was on League was actually the day that their new Teamfight Tactics released, and the queue times were 45 minutes, and so I said no thanks. I hear they've fixed that. But let's check one out sometime this week for next next podcast. The thing is, Cookie, is like, I think someone took Dota 2 and essentially made like an auto chess out of it as a mod, and then Dota 2 actually made an official version, and now League has pretty much taken that and done something really similar with their team fight tactics, where you essentially like choose units and then you put them on the battlefield, and it's essentially like playing an RTS without needing to micro at all. You're just like trying to create balanced or unbalanced units to like overpower your opponent and either put them into like a gold deficit or like come up with a creative strategy or build without having to have all of the techniques necessary in like a MOBA, or let's say, what is StarCraft? StarCraft is an RTS.
Mm-hmm.
It's like essentially playing the whole balance game of StarCraft without having to have like a certain APM to be able to be competitive with what you do.
So basically, kind of like a football manager, but RTS player manager.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually a really, really good comparison.
The term auto chess, while it was used for the original Dota mod, is actually like a bad way to think about the game, because it's not like you have pieces that move or characters or whatever that move in specific ways like chess, which is the fundamental of what chess is about, right?
Yeah, it's more about the variety of pieces and skills. Like if you considered a chess piece, each chess piece has a different skill. Maybe that would be a better argument.
Yeah, auto battler is definitely like the best way to think of it.
Yeah, not very grid-like either.
You make up that army, like it's more about like team comps and synergies and counteracting to what you think your opponent's strategy could be too with their team compositions. It's big, I guess. We'll see how long every time I see like a new and crazy thing that, trends on Twitch and also, well, is obviously trending on like a player standpoint as well, I always wonder if it's actually going to stick or if it's just going to be like,
that one phase,
the next fad. Yeah. The only issue I have with these auto battlers is that a lot of the matches seem to take a long time, like long for leagues, for League for that matter.
Like an hour,
40 minutes or so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a bit of time.
That's gross.
Yeah.
All right, I've immediately lost interest.
No, that's okay. Neil and I will check it out.
That's good. You guys go check that out. While you're checking that out, I'll be playing My Friend Pedro, which is the game from Devolver Digital about a
banana.
Yeah, basically a banana named Pedro and his friend. So I've only played like the tutorial and the first couple of levels right before the podcast. And it's interesting. It's not really built well for the Switch, which is what I got it on. Or at least I'm not finding the button controls really
comfortable.
Yeah.
Can you customize it at all?
I don't know as of yet. So, and I guess it's just because I'm used to bigger controllers with my shooters, but it's got really interesting mechanics. So like pushing in the L3 puts you in like the focus mode where everything slows down your bullet time. The LZ, or the L trigger, left trigger, lets you then separate if you've got two guns which you're aiming at. And the right trigger is going to be your shoot. And then either L or R, just like the normal bumper buttons, is going to be your dodge mechanic, to where you'll do the spin move that he does, and it'll cross his arms, and he can shoot in both directions. And I'm not finding that very natural right now.
That sounds pretty clumsy when you consider the fact that those the shoulder buttons, not the triggers, are really thin, and the triggers are right next to them. You got to do that like two-prong finger approach, which I hate on a controller.
Yeah. So I'm getting used to it. The motion flow's okay. I'm also still very new at it, so,
Mm-hmm.
not much to report on it. It's kind of interesting. You wake up in a random warehouse that's being run by the local butcher who likes to either serve, I think it was like rats, other kind of roadkill type of meats, and are just some unlucky human that he's not a fan of. Hence why you're in the storage locker and you escape and shoot your way out. Is all I've got so far. It's not really a Metroidvania. It plays more like just a level by level. When it comes to overarching story, I don't know yet.
Action platformer, perhaps?
Yeah, action platformer.
Is there any
That's a good
dialogue
way
that
to put
happens between levels?
it. Not between levels. So far, it's been like during the tutorial, there were a couple of things where Pedro pops out, your banana friend.
Pedro is the
and
banana?
Pedro is the banana.
Okay.
So yeah, so my friend Pedro is literally my friend, this banana. And he basically just sums up what your situation is on the like beginning of each level for like the 3 levels I've done so far, where it's quite literally, okay, you need to get out of here before the butcher comes back, yada yada yada. Well, we'll see how that goes. Oh, I guess I did do something random. The day when me and Scott were going to play Divinity Original Sin, I stepped on my fancy aim controller and the left joystick stuck. So I went out, got online, and built out a scuff controller. And then I went online and built an aim controller. And I compared prices. I got another aim controller. It'll be here in a couple of weeks.
Wait, another aim controller?
Yes. They make modded controllers out of officially licensed PlayStation controllers.
Gotcha. I guess at first I was thinking of the VR, the PSVR
The VR
controller.
aim control. Yeah, if you separate the word aim and controllers, you'll get the PSVR controller. If you don't, you'll get the
Okay, I see.
actual aim controllers. I got their aim V3 with 4 paddles magnetized on the back rather than the version I had before, which was the V2. I like the way the placement of their paddles because they're closer to the actual grip portion of the PlayStation controllers as opposed to the scuff controllers, which are kind of free-floating. That, and before I started getting into the features that I wanted for my controller, the scuff controller was already at $220. And the aim controller, after literally all the bells and whistles, came out to like $165 because they were running a sale, $50 off. So yeah, so I was like, okay, I'll save a little money, I guess. And
Yeah,
not get a scuff controller.
The scuff controllers, some of those PlayStation controllers really do have weird paddle spots. They're like much more centrally located than you would expect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually, all the complaints I have about my, I think it's what is it, an Elite controller or Xbox Pro controller? Whatever it is that I use for my computer gaming. Like, I think the paddles are in a much better spot with that, where they are in the grips, and so you're still gripping the controller with like 3/4 of your finger, and the last quarter is just doing the pressing of those buttons. Some of these scuff controllers I didn't realize were so far into the center of the body that you've really got to reach with your fingers, it looks like.
Yeah. See, I wish that, PlayStation would actually just get off their butts and actually design a controller closer
PlayStation
to
Pro.
Yeah, something closer to the Microsoft Elite controller and stop giving it to Razer and everyone else. As beautiful as those controllers are, kind of, I guess.
Better than Mad Catz, I'd say.
Yeah.
See, Neil, this is where we can throw in a lot of Xbox love or Microsoft love. Besides the fact that they use a really cheap component for the analog stick on their like Pro or Elite controller, the design is actually really good.
I just wish it weren't so heavy. Like,
I actually love that it's a frickin' rock.
I like the solidity of it, but I don't like the physical weight of it. Like, the weight can feel good, but as soon as you find yourself holding that controller for hours, that's where I have issue with it.
See, and I like holding a heavy controller because it's part of my workout routine.
Just constantly like doing not crunches.
Nice reps.
Yeah, I'm doing
your
reps with my controller while I play Dark Souls. Not only am I getting good, I'm getting swole too.
Do you have a default oh shit things are real moment with your controller stance?
Oh yeah, I do.
What does that mean?
Oh shit, things are real means you're playing a game and you realize if you don't have like perfect focus, failure is imminent.
Going to happen?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
makes
essentially
sense.
when you hit your flow state or your focus, or you were like on the edge. What is it? You're on your heels. Like, I consider it my on my heels kind of thing. And I straighten up my back, but I kind of hunch my shoulders in, and I just keep like a real tight grip of the controller, like mid torso.
The controller's
just,
location doesn't change, though, I take it.
No, the controller's location does change. I hold it a little higher. I like lock my body. I don't know what the deal is, but it works.
I essentially lock in like a 30 to 45 degree angle between my arm and like my bicep or whatever, or lack thereof, and my forearm. And
oh yeah, you really bring it
controller
in
is
tight
like
then.
elevated so high that it's like within a foot of my face at that point.
Right, because just in case things get really tense, like you might need to hit a button with your chin just to save that extra time.
It happens sometimes.
Optimum.
Mine's also very close to yours, Neo, where it's
Yep, like it's up, and you're like ready to throw that controller down in case something bad happens.
Or eat it. It looks like you could take a snack out of it.
I have noticed that, like, with my age, I've started to do things like lean as I'm playing games. Like,
I
so
actually used... Okay, go ahead.
I was playing a crane game in Yakuza 0, and
I like how I find myself leaning. So I was playing a crane game.
yeah, no,
In
it's-
another game.
I don't typically, like, unless it's like there's something really crazy happening and I'm trying to dodge like a bullet, like, let's say, I don't know, or a missile or something, like a shmup game or something, I might lean there.
Right.
But I was playing a crane game and I wanted to get a better angle on this glass display, and I actually found myself leaning, and I was like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like, leaning
Same VR, Neil.
in the direction.
Same VR.
So you're going to do the same thing when you play the crane game in Link's Awakening then too, right?
Is there a crane
You-
game in that?
Yeah, there is. It's how you get the Yoshi doll and start like this big item trading quest, which those are my favorite Legend of Zelda quests now that I think about it. Hey, here's this piece of random junk. Now trade it for 8 other pieces of random junk until you get something valuable out of it. It
That's the way to
probably
do
has
it.
one of the best that I've done. I think Ocarina at times was pretty good too, when you're doing eye drops for a broken sword.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That way, what is it? When Ganon knocks the Master Sword out of your hands at the end of the game, you just take out the bigger end sword and you're like, cool, I'll do extra damage instead.
Oh, but yeah, that was my other random thing. Bought a new controller. I was looking at the Astro C40, but all of the reviews that I was reading were very mixed, in a sense that since they don't have the mods out yet for it, the joysticks that it comes with have some drift issues, and a lot of them are failing. So a lot of people just have paperweights for all intents and purposes.
I feel like controllers, if I'm willing to spend money on mice and keyboards, I should be more invested in like a different controller, but I've never steered from, like, you know, the base DualShock models.
Well,
It'll be worth
The only
looking
thing
at
that
some point.
convinced me was Dark Souls. to finally get something with the paddles. It's when you finally feel like you need a better tool to perform. So that just means you've mastered using your basic controllers well enough that you haven't felt pressured yet.
Yeah. Well, we have one email today. This was unsigned. If you don't leave a name or anything in the email designating what you want to be named as, then I will not name anything.
Yeah, we'll just say anonymous hater.
Fancy Ramen, how would you have felt if PSO2 had been localized and released by Sony/PlayStation instead of Xbox? I have a feeling the reception would have been warmer. So this is definitely directed at me since I was the only person that talked about PS2 2 episodes
I was
ago.
going to say 2/3 of us would say, well, we still wouldn't care.
Still wouldn't care.
I would care just a little bit less. Wait, that was done by Xbox, not PlayStation?
Yep, and
Yeah.
that's what was so surprising about it. So I was
I
going
thought
to say
it existing was the surprising part.
I mean, yes, it existing is also extremely surprising because it's been 7 or 8 years since its release in Japan. And it technically has been in English for years over in the the Asian release, which, is a combination of like Mandarin, Cantonese, English, and some other languages. No, I don't think I'd be any more hyped. I think as I spoke over the last episode, which only just released yesterday, sometimes I take like more of a corporate or like business outlook from my perspective, and the one from Xbox, or like looking at what Xbox is doing there, is puzzling because like this game is not going to do well on the console, or most likely not going to do well on the console. It'll probably do okay on PC, but it's also just an old fucking game. I don't know. I don't understand. And whether or not it was Sony doesn't really, I mean, I would have been just as surprised that it was localized this long after. And I think the only reason I may have had a difference in opinion with Sony is because they actually already, I could be wrong on this, and I wasn't able to find a source on it in a timely manner, meaning I was too lazy to look it up this morning. But Sony actually tried to localize PSO2 for America at one point, and for whatever reason, it ended up falling through. And this is like years before. So the reason why they weren't able to then, and why they would attempt to again, I'm not sure what would have changed. Maybe they weren't willing to pay enough money, or maybe it had to do with crossplay. Because I'm sure that Sega did not want to further separate their player base. I don't know why it would be crossplay, because it's crossplay in Japan already on the PlayStation 3 or 4. I don't recall. I don't know, though. Obviously, I can't say that's exactly how I would have felt, because that's not the way things happens, but the game is too old at this point. This should have been localized way faster, way sooner.
It's really Phantasy Star Online's fault.
It's really Sega's fault, really? No, I wish we knew the reason why it wasn't brought out to America sooner.
Mm-hmm.
But
The game's too old even for Neo standards. That's bad.
Yeah, I know. That's man. What would Suikoden 5 say?
no, it's more that like the game is a service, right? So
Is it?
I guess in
Yeah.
that case, yes.
So it's like if there's a possibility that another newer game will eventually come out. Like, okay, would I want to play Final Fantasy 11 with 14 out?
Probably. Well, does 14 count? Since 14's what is it?
An
14's
MMO?
A Realm Reborn.
an MMO. Yeah. Wow. I'm
11's
just
an MMO as
stuttering.
well. So
Okay.
11 is MMO as well.
Yeah,
And
so-
MMO as well.
So, like, you obviously wouldn't want to play the older one because that service is going to end much quicker than the newer one.
But what about Phantasy Star Online 3? Does that exist?
That's what I'm saying. That's got to be in production, in my opinion.
Or it's not happening at all, and doesn't that
Could be, yeah.
you seem maybe skeptical of that take. But if it doesn't happen at all, then maybe Phantasy Star Online 2 has a little bit more viability, right? Like if that's the end of it.
But like, how many more years? Like, games as a service in general, it's much rarer to see a game last a decade than otherwise, right? And we talked a
Right.
bit about this last episode too, but like, you know, the expectations we have for WoW and League of Legends and Dota 2, I think are extremely high, or set the bar like way too high. Like RuneScape, for all of these games that have existed and been supported officially in some context for all of these years, we also have a bunch of games that, you know, fizzled out or that just ran their natural course and are no longer like not populated enough to get the full enjoyment of the game.
Right.
I was going to say, if you're about to mention RuneScape, it's weirdly bustling.
Yeah, RuneScape, I don't understand the RuneScape hype.
How or what? I know my baby cousin's all about the RuneScape right now for whatever reason. I call him a baby cousin, but he's really in college.
Yeah.
Well, you're out of college, so he's still the baby cousin.
I mean, he's just a
Touché.
smart baby, if anything.
Just got to fill up your inventory with sharks, is it? Or like fish that you eat for healing, I think. I don't know. Every time I see RuneScape, I just see their inventory slots are like full of fish or sharks or something.
Yeah,
Or
I've
wood.
never understood the game. Never played it though, really either.
Yep. It just looks awful. And I see him playing and I'm just like, just go back to League at this point. Ugh.
That says
one-
a lot. Yikes.
That's the one time I will condone this. He's like, yeah, but right now I'm going for number 10 wood carver on the server.
He's got to be the
Just
very
like-
best, like no one ever was.
The 10th best.
Except,
is
yeah,
what
I
he
guess
was
there are
going
9
for.
other people better than him at wood carving in RuneScape.
Yeah. Yeah, RuneScape. It's bustling and weird.
But like,
Anyway,
yeah, I don't know. If you
Fantasy Star Online too. It's happening.
Yeah, if you have, if you'd like to contribute anything in, you can write into podcast@fancyramen.com.
Don't hesitate to leave a like or review on Facebook and or anywhere else that lets you review. You know what? Just put it on your personal blog. That'll be fine.
And while your friends are looking at your personal blog, you can go ahead and tell them to listen to the Fancy Ramen podcast. Let everybody you like know about our service and help spread the word.
The good word.
The good word of Fancy Ramen.
Have a great week, everybody.
Bye.